for me, I felt like I was living to fulfill other people's expectations, and I was trying to do it perfectly, which led me to feeling burnt out. It led me to feeling a little resentful almost, but more than anything, I just felt really stressed and overwhelmed. And we don't all get a light bulb moment, but that was my light bulb moment of what I'm not changing, I'm choosing, and I don't want to choose this anymore. And so for me, that began this process of working through and just deconstructing these perfectionist tendencies. And finally, maybe for the first time, getting clear on what I actually wanted and how I wanted to feel as I started and woke up and began my day, and not what was expected of me. Even if those expectations came from a good place, in the end, it served me better to get in alignment with who is Kate in this season of life and who does she want to grow into.
Welcome to Scare Confident. I'm your host, Tiffany Souter. Okay, guys, I'm so excited to have Kate House join me on the podcast today. Kate lives in small town Pennsylvania, but her life is anything but small. She's a wife in a 2-career home. She's got 2 little boys, host of the Live by Design podcast, casually a top 2% show, a behavior change specialist, and an empowerment coach. Her mission is to help women move from feeling stuck and overwhelmed to living a life with confidence and clarity. I love how you say you help women live by design and not by default.
Yes, it's on my heart to do that. I jokingly say that I had a quarter life crisis at 25, but like right when I turned 25, I had a quarter life crisis. And I realized it was because I was kind of defaulting through my life and ticking all the boxes that were expected of me, but that didn't actually align with who I wanted to grow into. And so now that I've gone through the process of reorchestrating and designing my life and living intentionally, I'm like, how can I help others do the same? Because on the other side of it, it's so beautiful to live in that kind of space of alignment and empowerment.
I love that. If I would have shown this bio to your 22-year-old self, what do you think she would be most surprised to see on there?
Oh my goodness. I think she would be, I think she would just be so surprised that I felt confident enough to just show up exactly as I am and not as this polished perfectionist self that I really wrestled with at that age. Yeah.
How did that come out? Can you talk about that for a little bit? I think that's like at some point, I think we all carry that bag and that just has different mileage. Sometimes it's like, I used to always joke I couldn't wait to be like 80 and I was going to wear like one big earring and like just wear crazy. And I think I'm like closer to that in my 40s than
Yes.
I thought I would be. But yeah, tell us real quickly and then we'll jump into some of the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I found that I definitely had a lot of perfectionist tendencies, and that was really applauded when I was younger, right? I'm the oldest in my family, straight A student, got the quote, good job after college. And it was great for somebody who that was what they wanted to do. But for me, I felt like I was living to fulfill other people's expectations, and I was trying to do it perfectly, which led me to feeling burnt out. It led me to feeling a little like resentful almost, but more than anything, I just felt really stressed and overwhelmed. And I remember having this moment of like sitting on my couch in Illinois at the time with my husband crying. I just didn't even know what to do. I remember him rubbing my back and just telling me like, I wish there was something I could do to help. That was kind of like, we don't all get a light bulb moment, but that was my light bulb moment of like, oh, what I'm not changing, I'm choosing. And I don't want to choose this anymore. And so for me, that began this process of working through and just deconstructing these perfectionist tendencies. And finally, maybe for the first time, getting clear on what I actually wanted and how I wanted to feel as I started and woke up and began my day, and not what was expected of me. Even if those expectations came from a good place, in the end, it served me better to get in alignment with like, who is Kate in this season of life and who does she want to grow into? And letting go of the perfectionism was a big part of that, because showing up and doing it messy and a little scared, I've learned, is kind of the secret for me in terms of action creates clarity. And I was so stuck in inaction because of the perfectionism. And that was really the linchpin I needed to get rid of.
Oh man, I am hearing your words so specifically right now. We have a plan for this episode and I want to still have that plan. But you said, what I'm not changing, I'm choosing. Oh my word. I talk about there's 2 different kinds of change, the change that happens to us, and we lose the muscle and the ability to create proactive change in our lives. I love that. What I'm not changing, I'm choosing. my oldest daughter, I'm a firstborn, you're a firstborn. I would love to know what percentage of podcast hosts are firstborns. It has to be like an overwhelming percentage because
Yes.
it's the same bag of stuff that comes with it. It's like a riot. But she's 15, and I am looking at her saying in 3 years, not that she'll be totally on her own, but you're going to need to
Mhm.
make choices and decisions. And she loves the rubric that school brings. The rules are very clear. Winning and losing is very clear. The subject is determined. The tests are clear, and she loves that environment. And when it's not that clear, she really struggles. And this like action creates clarity. I'm like trying to figure out, how do I get her in that, even the shallow end of that pool? I don't know if you have any quick advice for me, or as you have gone through this journey, like parenting your boys. So I don't know, anything on that?
Oh my gosh, I love this question so much. Yeah, so I would say, I would ask her, do you feel a tug or a pull towards anything? And then creating the time or the space or the opportunity to explore that further. So for me, I've had this happen a number of times in life. Like when I turned 25 and I had my like crisis of identity, I quit a beautiful career that just wasn't the one for me, and I became a yoga teacher. I had never taught yoga before, but I had this kind of tug on my heart of like, this would be really wonderful. Like, wouldn't it be cool if, right? That's a great prompt too. Wouldn't it be cool if she gets stuck with like, what do you have a tug for? If she's like, I don't know, like, wouldn't it be cool if dot, 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 and then you fill in the blank? And wouldn't it be cool if, or listening to those little tugs led me to becoming a yoga teacher and loving that, and then wanting to go deeper with my students. So then I became a health coach, and then wanting to reach more people. And that started the podcast. But with each step in my journey, I've had this little tug. And the first time, like when I wanted to be a yoga teacher, I was afraid to say it out loud because I was so stuck in that, like, that's not what was prescribed for me kind of mentality. And my husband was the one who turned to me one day and was like, I think you'd be a really good yoga teacher. And I was like, well, funny story. I would love to be a yoga teacher. And then when I wanted to start my podcast, I didn't tell anybody because I felt self-conscious about it for whatever reason. And my best friend texted me and was like, hey, I think you should start a podcast. And I was like, oh, all right, universe, like I'm listening. And now I'm finally, 10 years into this journey at a point where I can listen to those little tugs, and I don't need somebody outside of myself to help me recognize it. But sometimes we need those people when we're not quite clear on what are my core values? What do I want from my life? Sometimes we need those guides, right? And what a gift to have them. And it's so beautiful that your daughter has you to kind of help her start to tune into that.
Oh, we're a riot together because I live in the gray, kind of on the full time,
Yeah.
like I just love a mess figuratively, and kind of I can like guess at a place to start, and I'm okay with that failure cycle. And she is so black and white that I sometimes feel like I must be speaking a different language.
Uh-huh.
Because she just looks at me. We're navigating it. She's an
Yes.
amazing kid, and I'm so proud of her. But I am finding, I think there is a different vocabulary that I'm going to need other than the one that makes sense in my head. So I'll try these. I'll try these.
Yeah. Right. And then maybe she tries something and she's like, you know what, mom, you know what I learned from this experience is that I don't like this, or I don't want to do this. And sometimes that's really helpful because maybe that'll help steer her more towards what it is that she really digs.
Yeah. Thanks for that. So I asked Kate, so she has a Live by Design blueprint. So it's like your course of sorts that you take people through, and you talk about goals with soul. And so I asked her, I said, Kate, instead of us giving us like an academic overview of what that is, would you take me through the process? Not the full course, but the goals with soul, and what does that mean? And I think I'm at a place where some of this guidance could be helpful in my own journey as I'm unpacking this decade in a different way and jumping into some things that are like a little scary. And so so Kate offered to do that. So that's what I think we're going to do now. Is that right?
Yes, I'm so excited. And I love your willingness to do things scared. I think sometimes the word scared gets a bad rep, but sometimes the thing that we desire is like just outside of our comfort zone. And I know I told you on my show, I have a tattoo that says do it scared, right? So I am here for this. What a beautiful thing to do it scared, coupled with somebody else, right? To get to like link arms with a coach or a podcast or whomever, and get to kind of walk through it together. So I'm so excited to dive in. So the first thing I would ask you, Tiffany, is for coaching, I always think about coaching as being forward facing, right? So we're looking ahead to the forward, whereas therapy and work like that is past oriented. So as we look forward, the first thing we want to do is establish where we are now. So right now, How is it that you're feeling? When you wake up and you start your day, what like 3 or 4 words would you use to describe that?
I feel energized. I feel like I'm looking through a foggy telescope.
Okay.
That would not be an adjective, but you can feel that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And where I feel guilt in my life right
Mhm.
now, it's that I think being still and present is very hard for me naturally. And in this season and stage with my kids, I know they need it from me. And I would give myself like a C minus at it.
Okay.
It's not that I'm not here. I
Hmm.
used to not be here. I've worked hard to be here, but
Yeah.
there's like a stillness and a waiting and a patience that it feels very out of reach. And it is
Mm.
not because I can't, like physically, meaning like I'm in such a habit of hurrying. I
Yeah.
don't actually know how to not. I'm
Mm.
seeing, I think I'm manufacturing some of that for us.
Mm.
I don't love it.
Yeah. So if I were to mirror it back to you, you wake up, you feel energized, but you have a little bit of that foggy telescope feeling. That's such a beautiful description. And then you have a desire to feel more present
Mhm.
and patient and just like being where your feet are. But there's a little bit of a difficulty getting there. Does that sound right?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because
That's
I like
beautiful.
I don't feel blindfolded. I feel like I know directionally where I'm going, but I just like
Mhm.
can't see it as crisply as my confident achiever wants to see it.
Yeah, yeah. I totally, oh man, you're
Mhm.
preaching to the choir. It's funny, Tiffany, because a lot of the women that I work with, the word presence and being present, I would say 70% of the time is one of the things that the women I work with have a desire for, but we're in that kind of hustle mentality. So just all that to say, you are not alone, friend. And I'm really excited to do this together. So if currently you feel energized, which is awesome, you feel like your direction, but you'd like it to become a little bit clearer, and you have a desire for presence, 12 months from now, Tiffany, when she wakes up, how does she feel?
I used the analogy earlier when I was kind of explaining this to you. I feel like I'm walking across a bridge, like leaving some certainty and familiar like land and
Mhm.
going to a new one. And I feel like I'm walking with some trepidation, not because I think it's the wrong bridge. I just don't know how fast to run. I think I want to
Yes.
feel a sense that my time and attention is wholly reflective of my priorities. And I had shared with you, I think the work I do and my natural tendency is to be able to physically make the space for time, like
Hmm.
physically move things away. So I'm like, I've got 8 more hours back. And now I'm not totally knowing how to use that stillness more strategically, I think.
Yeah.
I think I want there to be a settledness for me. Leading a team is a lot, but leading teenagers, there's a certain consistency I think that
Mm.
they need to have from me. And I'm like pretty consistent, but there's a certain, I think, just peacefulness that I need to
Mm.
have
Yeah. Yeah.
so that
Totally.
they just know there's space for them. So,
Mm. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. So the desire is to have your time and your attention reflect your priorities and to feel that settledness and that peacefulness. It's really beautiful because I can see the connection between how you feel currently and the desire you have for the future. Now, even though coaching is forward facing, there are things we can learn from the past. So I'm curious, Tiffany, if there was ever a time in your past when you felt that connection, like your time and attention reflected your priorities, or if you felt that sense of peacefulness or settledness. Has that ever been something that you were like, oh, I feel like in this time of life, maybe I had a taste of that? Or is this maybe something new that you're exploring?
I think there is this correlation for me in intense clarity when things are really hard.
Okay.
So when there is like in fight or flight, I'm fight. And so when there is a battle, there is a clarity that comes for me that is like, I think that's why I've been able to be successful. Sometimes it doesn't need to get as bad as I let it, but I am
Mhm.
so good in the war.
Yeah.
And I think that I just have been like, I think that's connected to this restlessness that I create. I don't know. I can't see it all, honestly, but that's in my own sort of diagnosing, like, why can't I just be restful? Is there's clarity for me when it's hard. I'm so crisp. I'm so clear when my back is against the wall, when we're resource constrained. And I'm in a place where I'm doing a lot of things because I want to and not
Yeah.
because like I have to. And so how do I create that same sense of clarity, confidence, articulation for myself in abundance and not just in
Yeah.
scarcity?
Yeah. I love that. Well, because life has this tendency, right, to ebb and flow. And so it sounds like when it's ebbing, you know what to do, right? Like you're great in a crisis, right? Like when the zombie apocalypse happens, I'm
Yeah.
calling you.
Yeah. I'm here for it. Yeah.
But then when things start to flow and things are no longer needing to be dealt with in the exact same way, there's a little bit of resistance there. Does that sound right?
Yeah. I think I have a hard time creating right-sized compartments for
Mm.
things. You know what I mean? Like I can get 100 things done if there's only 6 minutes, but I
Hmm.
can't get anything done if there's a whole day.
Yeah.
So I think knowing how to create that restfulness and compartmentalization of like, I've decided that these are going to be the hours where I let myself just be. And I don't
Hmm.
need to be processing
Yeah.
something task oriented.
Yeah, I love that. And can I
Um,
ask, do you work from home?
I'm kind of all over the place. So I'm home a couple days a week usually, but I
Hmm.
also have an office that I go into. I'm
Okay.
very flex.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, cool. So future you, your time and attention reflects your priorities. You feel that sense of subtleness and peacefulness. And I love how you said that time to just be.
Mhm.
So if you were to set an intention for the next 12 months, and that's the beautiful thing about this kind of practice, just as an aside for your community, is sometimes we think that we can only set goals or set intentions in January. You can do this for the next 12 months, any day of the year. It could be a Wednesday, right? In the middle of the year. So when you think about the next 12 months, if there were one word or two words or a short saying that really summarizes that intention, is it presence? Is it peaceful? Is there a word that comes to mind for you?
The word that came to mind actually that I think is see, meaning like the girls can be like talking to me and I don't even actually see them. I feel the words whizzing past my face. You know what I mean? But I'm like, my brain is on something else. I'm thinking about something. I'm like making a grocery list or something. So I think it's like
Yeah.
see what's there right now.
I love that. That's beautiful. That like gives me goosebumps in like a really good way. Okay, so if we think about future Tiffany 12 months from now, sees, right? She is where her feet are. She is in the moment. Her mind is where her body is. And I ask this question because typically we know what it is we want or need to do in order to achieve that. It's just a matter of figuring out within ourselves what is that and then creating the plan to implement it. So I always start with the annual intention because that becomes how you said it's a foggy telescope, like the direction you're heading. And now we're going to create how do we actually get there, right? So if we were to think about what are some tangible things that help you feel more present in your day, in your mind, in your body, or in your relationships? What are some of those things?
I'm thinking about like my marriage as a parallel. I guess I'll just like export some things I've thought of and then some things I'm thinking about, like what keeps my husband and I connected.
Yeah.
Like shared experiences and like
Hmm.
just new adventures, just something new where you're seeing something together for the first
Yeah.
time. I
Yeah.
think that for me is a point of connection and compare like just I like new stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I've thought to myself so many times, like, I just need to like put my phone
Hmm.
in a box between the hours of X and X. And then I'm like, right, but usually there's a kid not home. Like
Hmm.
almost always, because my older two are in activities. And so it's very rare that everybody's here and I'm like, I can put my phone away because it's fine if nobody can get a hold of me.
Yes.
I don't know if
Yep.
that's head trash, but I think that's real, actually. So I've also thought about deleting social media off my phone,
Uh-huh.
that is maybe something to experiment with. I could convince myself that was a good idea because I don't think I look at it a lot, but I bet I do. I bet if I went and actually looked at the stats of my apps, I
Hmm.
could. I think you can do that, right?
You can. Yeah, totally.
I think our family works so like there is a heavy routine to our family because
Hmm.
we're in the school calendar and we just are this heavy routine. I think that our family does so well when I have the energy to break routine. So like
Mm.
on Tuesday night to like get 3 games out of the closet and be like, we're gonna pick one of these and play it for half an hour. Like just break routine.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I think that breaks the cartilage open and just us just behaving as a family instead of
Yeah.
being a family.
Yes. I
Um,
love that.
so those are things that came up. Yeah.
Cool. I love that. So
Some of
the
those are new
reason
ideas I hadn't had. So that's helpful.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's why I asked that question is because sometimes it takes slowing down and saying it out loud in a safe space to play around with it, right? And sometimes you might even say something that you're like, actually, no, I don't think that's a great idea. Or it could be like when, as you were sharing, and you're like, I could be convinced to take social off my phone, right? Like these are the things that sometimes we just need the space to explore, right? And the reason I asked this question is because what I like to do is take this annual intention of C and pull it out into quarterly goals because, as somebody like you who's a real doer, having something really tangible to work towards, I find to be super helpful because it gives us that chance to have something that we're striving for that's specific. But when I talk about goals with soul, I'm not like SMART goals are great. But to me, a goal with soul is aspirational. Future Tiffany can do it, but maybe current Tiffany is like, well, this is a little new and different. But it's also attainable. So it's something that, like, if you put some effort into it, you can do it. It's meaningful. Your why behind this is so strong. Like, it's meaningful. You want that connection and that presence with your family. And the last thing is that it's seasonally appropriate. So when you talk about my kids are in school, right? Like, that is a season. And so, like, a 30-minute game time is seasonally appropriate. Whereas we're going to go, the aquarium today, right? Like that maybe isn't seasonally appropriate. So that's why we think about these goals with soul. So if you were to choose, and this is always hard, especially for those of us who like to have like 20 things on our to-do list, but if you were to choose 2 goals for the next 3 months, that by the end of 3 months' time, this is something that regularly happens for you out of this list of shared experiences, new adventures, experiencing things for the first time together, your phone, and just having the energy to break routine, would there be maybe 2 things that you're like, I would love to work towards this? To add on to that, my challenge to you would be maybe one thing that you do that's just you. So that might have something to do with your phone or social. And then one thing that has to do like on the family side, because it seems like maybe these things work well together.
Yeah. That's great because that's where my head was going. I think deleting social off my phone for a quarter is actually takes like maybe 14 seconds to make happen. So even better, there's like, that's very easy to execute.
Yep.
I talk about minimums in my world and you got to like, what's your minimum? I think I don't know if once a week is too high of a minimum for me to commit to this sort of like break routine thing. It's like at least 30 minutes of break routine activity once a week.
Yeah.
I'm going to spot like those reusable water balloons. Have you gotten those for your boys?
Oh my gosh, they're amazing. The ones that they're
like
so good.
Magnetically click together.
Yeah.
Hello, where have you been all my life?
I know, right?
Although I am a little panicky when they like lose one because they're kind of expensive. I was like, that would be the only thing that would be better because I'm like, guys, there were 26 of these and now there's only 20.
Yeah.
I was like, I was a little psycho about that. Maybe just let them have fun. But if I put my suit on and went outside and had a water balloon fight with them, they would die.
Yes.
So I think that's it.
Yeah.
One night a week, 30 minutes of break routine.
It's amazing. So then the last thing that we do is we take this annual intention of seeing. Now we have our 2 quarterly goals, deleting social and the 30 minutes a week to break routine. Now we want to pull it down into a daily or a weekly habit. So we can talk about habit stacking and loops and all the things, but basically, what is something that you can do each day that supports this desire? So maybe, for example, the habit with like breaking routine for 30 minutes, maybe that's every Sunday you look at the calendar ahead and you choose, okay, this is the best night to break routine. And if you delete social off your phone, that's almost one where like, that doesn't even have to be a daily habit because once it's off, so the habit is just like, don't re-download it. I guess, like that one's actually kind of love how straightforward that one is.
Totally. It's like, there's nothing to manage after that choice.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, just don't reload it.
Yep.
I'm really anxious actually to see, I think there'll be like an embarrassing detox actually.
Have you ever read the book, How to Break Up with Your Phone?
No.
Oh, that
I don't know if I'm ready to.
Yeah. And so it helps you create healthy boundaries with your phone. And it's one that my husband and I keep coming back to time and time again, because it's like something I'm continually learning how to like have in my life, but in a healthy way. So maybe that's a second quarter goal.
I know. Maybe maybe that's a second quarter goal to read it. Cause it's like, it makes my life so mobile. I can keep things going maybe too easily. Maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe I need to put things in their box. I don't know. This would be a great thing to try.
Yeah, this will be fun to try. James Clear talks in Atomic Habits about the importance of spaces. So, like the idea of like, this is the space where I work, and this is the physical space where I work out, like at the gym, right? Like when you get into the gym and you switch into like, this is my time for me, this is how I invest in my future health, right? So, I wonder if that's something that could kind of play into it in the future too, is like, as you say, like maybe it's too mobile, is okay, how can we have the space that's like, this is when I sit down and I check social.
Do you
This is,
find that's practical for your life? Like I hear that and I'm like,
yeah,
I am a long way from that world. I do go to the
yeah.
gym and work out, but the rest of it is like a life casserole.
So I find that when I let a lot of the lines blur for me, I have trouble keeping up with everything because it's like I read the email, but then like my 4-year-old needs his tushy wiped, right? And so then I don't get to respond. And then it's like I'm drafting the response in my brain, but then before I get to send it on my phone, then there's something else that's pulling me away, right? And so I love setting a timer. This sounds like so silly, but like
Oh, I'm here
I
for
can
it.
set, I've got one on my desk and I'll set like a 30-minute timer. And I'm like, all right, for the next 30 minutes, I'm just going to deal with my inbox and I'm just going to get as much done as I can in this amount of time. And then when it's done, it's almost like time blocking, but it's like a game with myself. Well, how much can I get it done in this time? And that helps me because otherwise I find when you talk about presence and like seeing the person in front of you and your brain not being like, for us high achievers, it can be really hard because our brains are going a million miles an hour. And I find if I can say like, this is the time for this task, then I can then kind of press pause on it mentally and then move on to the next thing. And sometimes the next thing is like, I'm going to go to t-ball practice and I'm going to actually watch my kid play t-ball and not be trying to post the reel I didn't post earlier in the day,
Yeah,
right?
completely.
And
You know
yeah,
the things.
yeah, totally. And so I find that that helps. It's not perfect. I'm definitely not perfect at it, but I find that it gives me a little bit more space in my mind. And there's a little less of that like monkey chatter,
Okay. Well, I think that's just freeing to say it so clearly.
right?
That's how I feel right now.
That's
Um,
awesome.
it's like it's freeing to feel. I always feel like I would say a vulnerable admission of the problem is the first step to solving it.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't taken the time to articulate it even so clearly to myself starts for me to be able to see it more objectively versus it just being this feeling that lives in me. So really powerful. Thank
I
you.
love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. And so, like, that's exactly right. That's the first step. So, you've got your intention of seeing, you have your desire, your quarterly goals of taking off social and that 30-minute break in routine once a week. And then your habit is planning that 30-minute break at the start of each week and then just not re downloading the apps. And then, my challenge to you, like, I like to call it soul work because, no, like, I've done enough homework in my life. Like, what is the
Mm.
soul work? My soul work to you would be just to check in with yourself, like say every 14 to 21 days, check in with yourself and be like, how does this still feel? Right? Because here's the thing, we can set these goals with soul, but life ebbs and flows, like we said. So if a season comes up where things get really hard or you have more capacity, it gives us a chance just to check in with ourselves. So every 2 to 3 weeks, check in with yourself. Like, how's this feeling? Does this still feel expansive and abundant? Or is there tension here? Is there a little tweak I can make, right? To make it a little easier, flow a little simpler for me. And then at the end of the 3 months, you get to decide like, is this something I continue forward? What did I learn through this experiment and this process that I want to pull forward? What do I want to leave in the past and say, like, that was a great experiment, but maybe that's not right for this season? And then you get to come back to your intention of C and decide what those next quarterly goals are. Because, they say 21 days to make a habit, but when you have 4 kids and you're running a business and you're doing all the things, like it takes me more than 3 weeks to make a habit. Like 3 months, at the end of 3 months, I can have it really solidly part of my life. And I need that before I try to layer anything else on.
Yeah, I love that. Start small. It's so good. Well, if somebody wants to go through this process, like they're hearing me go through my business and saying, I need this too. What does that look like, Kate? How does somebody engage with you, either in one-to-one like this or in a group setting? How does that work?
Oh, thank you for asking, Tiffany. I appreciate it. Yeah, so my website is the best place to start. So it's Miss Kate House, MS Kate House, just like a house. There's another Kate House out there and she beat me to katehouse.com. So that's why I miss Kate House. And I have my coaching programs on there. So I offer a one-on-one coaching retainer. So if you're somebody that's like, you know what, I really just want to work one-on-one and just go deep right away, like we just did, that's available. And then I also offer a monthly membership, which is my group coaching program. It's called the Live by Design Collective. And so we do this exact same thing, but we do it in a group setting. The women in there are amazing. I've had it for 3 years and our retention rate's insane because people come and they make connections and they stay. And it's like if personal growth curriculum and learning like married a coaching program. So like we learn together, we grow together. And if you want that kind of regular touch point in a group environment, that's a great place to do it.
Amazing. Well, this has been so helpful for me. Thank you for the gifts of your
I'm
talents.
so excited. Of course. I'm going to like email you in 30 days and
I
be
know.
like, how's it going?
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I was getting ready to maybe say I'll update like my listeners as I go through this, but I want to get organized and like put it in my calendar so that I can actually operationalize this.
I love it.
Okay, let's part with you sharing a tip from your 2-career home. How can you help something you and your husband do, you and your family, anything you'd offer up to my listeners?
Oh, I love this. So for our 2-career home, my husband and I started a couples gratitude practice like 4 years ago. It was right when the pandemic hit. We had a 10-month-old, we had a 2-year-old, we were doing all the things and we were just like past capacity, right? And so we were like, what if we just pause each day to acknowledge the good in the day and say it out loud? But then it became this thing where like I wanted to say something good about my husband and he would want to say something nice about me. But then we also wanted to be like, but then there was this other thing that was good. So the way we do it is we say, the thing I'm grateful to you for today is, and we tell the person what we're grateful for. And it could be something as simple as like, when I was cuddling Conrad on the couch and you brought coffee over to me, like that was really nice. Like I really appreciated that, which is probably what mine will be today. And then we say, and generally I'm grateful for, and then that's usually something outside of our relationship. And it sounds so hokey, but it's just such
I love it.
No, like you're acknowledging each other, you're holding space for each other. And it can even be, I mean, there have been days where we're like, I'm really grateful that we had that really hard conversation that we needed to have because I feel so much better now, or we have clarity now, right? And so it's not always like, oh, I'm grateful for the rainbows and butterflies. Sometimes you're grateful for the more challenging things because you're getting to grow together. And it's such a simple thing. And even if like my husband's a gamer, he plays Call of Duty at night with his friends. It's like his social outlet. He plays in our basement because they're so loud. It's hilarious. And so sometimes even if we're doing our own thing at night, it sounds ridiculous, but we'll text each other inside of our own house and be like, I'm going to bed. Here's what I'm grateful to you for. This is what I'm grateful for in general. So you can make it easy, right? You can just fold it into your day in whatever way.
I love that. That's so special, Kate. The people we love become what we say about them. If I complain to my friends about my husband, that's what I'll remember about him. And if I speak of him in a way that's like, this is what I love, and that 87% that's amazing, then you see more of that. And so I think it's amazing. So practical, so easy, such an easy lift. So thanks for sharing your gifts, for sharing your tip. And maybe we'll have you back, do a check-in on how
That's right.
Seeing into the future. So thanks, Kate.
Thank you, Tiffany.
So let's do a quick recap on this conversation that I just had with Kate. So she talks about goals with soul, which, as she said, on the surface sounds like a little granola, but it's like really awesome, actually. There's 4 aspects to a goal with soul. One is it's aspirational, it's obtainable, it's meaningful, and it's seasonally appropriate. That last one in a 2-career family, for it to be seasonally appropriate, for the capacity for this amount of change to happen inside of the like unit that is your household and your family, it's like really important. So I thought that was awesome. Goals with soul are aspirational, obtainable, meaningful, and seasonally appropriate. And to do a quick summary on the process that she took me through, look at the future. Well, look at today. How do you feel today? Capture that. Close your eyes, read your body. What does it feel like? The second question she asked me is, how do you want the future to feel? What do you want to look like when you're 1 year from now and you're looking back at yourself and you're saying, holy cow, my life has changed in what way? Setting a daily or a weekly habit to move you towards that goal, and then setting a reminder to check in with yourself every 2 weeks. So I'm putting this stuff on my calendar. I am being a student in this, and I'm excited if I can move myself forward from being very cluttered and just feeling like my mind is going all over the place, and being settled and being able to just see my day and my people. As always, thanks for listening in to this episode of Scared Confident. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Scared Confident. Until next time, keep telling fear, you will not decide what happens in my life. I will.